Let's go then to the city of Cape Town. It's in the DA province, and it's a province that the DA is very proud to say it runs magnificently. Yes. You know, we have stories on News 24, and Ground Up's done some good work to contest that. But if you look at the ballot paper that voters will get for that metro on the 3rd, it's got over 40 political parties. Does that speak to a kind of bloated and sort of ineffectual democracy, that there are all of these kind of random curveballs? Does that make politics weaker or stronger?
You know, our system allows for the existence of small parties, and so we've seen a mushrooming of small parties. And I think in the Western Cape Town, you know, we've seen a change in government in the Western Cape, and so perhaps people think that this is the province or this is the area where they could make some headway. So you have that level of contestation. I personally don't see a problem with having additional small parties. I think that it adds to the vibrancy of democracy. So I think that more people have opportunity to have their voices heard. In some instances, not necessarily the Western Cape, but there are some in the Western Cape, where you'd have, for example, a ratepayers association or a small party actually securing enough votes to get a seat. And so you'll have a particular community or a particular issue which is heard in the decision-making process. And I don't think that's bad for democracy. I think also those people who stand in election become more politically engaged, and that to me is a good thing. So the DA, for example, in previous elections as well as in this election, have said that a vote for a small party fractures the vote. Yes. And you know, I don't think that is a problem to vote for a small party, as I say, but also voters determine the playing field. So there's no need to do away with small parties, because ultimately voters decide.
So the system will kind of prune itself.
Correct. Exactly.
Yes. That's interesting, because it's not only the DA who've said that, it's also the ANC. Danny Jordan and President Jacob Zuma, both in PE or Nelson Mandela Bay Metro over the weekend, saying to voters there, don't waste your vote. Yes. Don't give it away to a random curveball party or an unknown. You really need to kind of throw in your card with us. Yes. And I suppose, you know, you're saying it's not bad if people vote for a smaller party, but it is bad for the big players in South African politics.
Exactly the point. So the big players have an incentive for people to vote for them. The problem is that it's quite a difficult choice for voters to make. So many voters look at the three big players, the ANC, the DA and the EFF.
Or interestingly, I saw in Port Elizabeth the UDM, very popular there.
Yeah. And it's hard for them. So if you just take the three, people look at them, and so there's strong loyalty for the ANC. But given what's been happening and the challenges at national level, which does filter into the local level, people might look at the ANC and say, I feel dissatisfied. But that dissatisfaction doesn't translate into support for the DA necessarily. Or the EFF. So if you look at opinion polling data, there's a low level of trust for opposition parties. So you might be dissatisfied with the ANC, but you don't necessarily trust the DA, and you feel maybe uneasy with the EFF. Mm-hmm. So then the option is, do I abstain or do I go out and vote?
Or do I spoil my ballot?
Or do I spoil my ballot? And for me, abstaining has a negative effect on the quality of democracy. One can understand exactly why people might feel that way, which is why I say it's important to have alternatives and choice, so that if you feel dissatisfied with all three, you're not going to opt out.
Okay, so you can then maybe vote for one of the smaller parties.
Exactly.
And I mean, it is that question of kind of, you know, the best of a bad lot in a way. If you're very cynical about politics and about politicians, you're in a pit of snakes and you're kind of like, well, which one's the least likely to bite me? And that's the decision voters are going to have to make on the 3rd. Tricky.
Yes. I think that voters in South Africa are quite sophisticated. I think that there's strong levels of party loyalty given the history of the country. And, there's this whole debate about how do voters vote. Is it based on identity? Is it race? Is it region, etc.? And in a country, our experiences are structured racially.
Yes.
Our informational networks is also, by and large, structured racially. But I think that voters are quite sophisticated and they do grapple with the issues. They use the information that they have available to them. And recent polls again suggest that there could be an increase in turnout. So, for example, Citizen Surveys has also been conducting polls, and it looks like there is increased interest to go out and cast the ballot. In previous years, we saw a decline in participation. But given the high levels of contestation, one would hope that people, even though they feel dissatisfied and perhaps a bit uncertain as to who they're going to vote for, would turn out and vote. Yes.
Yeah. You've spoken there about voters' decision-making processes, and that's a field of research and academics that you look into. Yes. What are some of the things that actually push voters to change where they put their cross on the ballot?
I think some of the factors that would push voters is if they see a lack of congruence between the rhetoric of the party versus the actions of the party and how the voter experiences it. And that could, for example, lead to a sense of betrayal. So as I say, I think voters have strong allegiances, they have strong levels of partisanship in South Africa. So they're not easily going to switch that allegiance. It happens gradually over a period of time. And older people who lived through apartheid have stronger allegiances. Whereas I think younger people, by and large, are more willing to consider different options. So it's quite a gradual process, and there's many factors. There's long-term factors, there's your family, as I say, your informational networks and so on. But there is this process of engagement, and I do feel that South African voters are quite sophisticated.